I'm Christopher Cruz reporting. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in South Korea now after meeting with North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un in Pyongyang earlier on Sunday. VOA Seoul correspondent Steve Miller.
Pompeo met with Kim for about 2 hours Sunday, but gave few details as to the meeting's outcome to reporters. One official on the trip described it as better than the last time, but they added, it's going to be a long haul.
Pompeo and Kim did agree to arrange a second U.S. North Korea summit as soon as possible. And on Sunday, the U.S. State Department said Pompeo and Kim, quote, refined options for the location and date of that next summit. After Pompeo's stop in South Korea, he'll visit China. Before heading home, the Beijing visit could be tense. It will be happening just days after Vice President Mike Pence made a blistering speech accusing China of military aggression, commercial theft, rising human rights violations, and electoral intervention against President Trump. Turkish officials have concluded that a Saudi Arabian journalist who'd been living in self-imposed exile in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul last week, when he went there to get a document for his upcoming marriage, was killed. Jamal Khashoggi's fiancée, who waited outside the consulate, says he never came out of the building. Police said that about 15 Saudis had arrived in Istanbul on 2 flights last Tuesday and were at the consulate at the same time as Khashoggi. Saudi officials say the allegations are baseless. China said Sunday it is investigating Meng Hongwei for suspected wrongdoing. Meng is now the former head of the global law enforcement organization Interpol and Chinese Vice Minister for Security. A statement by a Chinese anti-graft body was the first official word from China about Meng since he disappeared Friday. This is VOA News. At least 12 people have died in an earthquake in northwest Haiti. The 5.9 magnitude quake struck Saturday night. More than 180 people have been injured. International aid has finally begun arriving in many of the devastated communities in Indonesia hard hit by an earthquake and tsunami on September 28th. Sunday, Indonesia's aid agencies raised the death toll to more than 1,700 in central Sulawesi province. 5,000 are feared missing. 20 people died in a crash Saturday in upstate New York involving a limousine and another vehicle. Associated Press correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Someone with knowledge of the investigation tells the Associated Press 18 of the victims were in the limo and the other 2 victims were bystanders. New York State Police say the crash happened around 2 in the afternoon on Saturday in Schoharie, right in front of the Apple Barrel Country Store. Liz Gallup works there and says almost everyone in the small, close-knit community is affected.
A lot of hugging and praying and commiserating together, but that's what small communities do.
According to news reports from some of the witnesses, the limo was speeding down a hill and the bystanders killed were in the parking lot of the store.
Cameroonians have been choosing a president over the weekend from a list of 8 contenders, among them 86-year-old incumbent Paul Biya, who has ruled the Central African state for 36 years. He is widely expected to be re-elected. Correspondent Moki Edwin Kinzeka reports from Yaoundé.
Election security in the English-speaking regions was tightened after violent battles in several towns and villages. The governor of the southwest region, Bernard Okala-Bilai, says many terrorists were killed and several buildings and residences were set ablaze. The government said at least 2 armed men were killed by the military in the English-speaking northwestern town of Bamenda. More than 200,000 people have been displaced because of violence in the English-speaking regions, with many towns deserted.
The too few eligible voters in Romania turned out for a 2-day referendum that sought to prevent same-sex marriages by changing the country's constitution. The National Election Bureau said late Sunday after polls closed that voter turnout was just over 20%, far short of the 30% needed for the vote to be valid. The ruling Social Democrat Party had asked voters to approve a constitutional amendment that would have changed the definition of family by declaring that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. There's more on these and other late-breaking and developing stories from around the world around the clock at voanews.com and on the VOA News mobile app. I'm Christopher Cruz. VOA News.